I think a
Mhm.
lot of people are going to say, that's not what we're looking. We don't want that. Like, it goes back to that whole thing of the way that the Germanic peoples governed themselves. We don't need some overarching leader, authority, kingdom of Ossetru or kingdom of heathenry here to tell us anything. It's and I don't think that's what any of us really want. It's
No.
more of, okay, if there's this, when people are needed, like, let's just say a disaster of nature strikes, you should know who your people are to go to, and your people should know who to go to when they're in need. And so if you have, disaster strike or something happens in an area of Texas or Tennessee or wherever you're located, the unification, I think, the confederacy that we're talking about, is to know that there's people that can band together to help one another when shit hits the fan. It's not like we want to tell you what to do and how to do it every waking moment. Do your thing, but
Yeah.
let's be
It's kind of like what
human
happened
enough to help one another.
in North Carolina when they had that gigantic flood that came through.
Yeah, from Helen or
Yes,
Helene, whatever. Yeah,
and the Mother Grove, which is it's a pagan group, and they've been around for 40 something years, and they really don't have a temple. They have an altar and everything, and they have a food pantry, and they help that whole entire community area that they're in North Carolina. And she posts every day, and does prayers, and talking about what people need. And to me, she's like that pagan grandma you never had, and she gives you inspiration, and keeps you positive and stuff. And she tells everybody, like, we're needing gift cards, we're needing water, we're needing propane tanks. Like, she's upfront and honest and tells everybody what they need, and she gives it to everybody in the community, not just the pagans. She gives it to everybody. And River Pine, we're inspired by that. So with us, if somebody's needing help moving, we help them move. Or if they're in a financial crisis, we'll take them grocery shopping. We're raising money right now for the backpacks and school supplies for the kids, and we're already halfway through it, and we haven't even made it to August 1st when we're going to distribute it out.
nice.
But our story inspires others to build a better community than what we had. And at Yule, we do the jackets and the shoes and the toys and arts and crafts for kids. And we let people know up front, like, almost all of our money goes to the community on helping build a better tomorrow. And I don't get paid for being a Githia. The only time I ever
Yeah.
get paid is marrying a couple, and most of the time, the money that I get is to travel back and forth, and it's gone by the time I get back home, and I don't care. It's inspiring to go marry somebody that is in love, and they honor the old ways, and it's a great thing. And I think that for Norse pagans and pagans in general, we're not ruled by money. Yes, money pays the bills. Money is king in the world that we live in, but we connect with the land. And
Hmm.
yes, we have altar stuff that we have to buy and or make, or do whatever and stuff like that. Just like even Tacitus talked about, that they would pull a branch down and cut them into slivers, and do divination. Like,
Oh yeah,
I'm
casting
pretty
lots.
sure,
Like, yeah.
yeah, I'm pretty sure they didn't have like a pop-up shop for like, for the Norse shop, like, hey, we've got some lots right here. You want some for a shilling? Like, no, they had to go make everything on their own, just like a lot of us. We make a lot of stuff on our own, don't we? You make your runes yourself. I make my little rune ornaments, and I make rune sets as well. And I'll do Norse paintings of different stuff, depending on what people want or whatever. And people even will bring, like, Mjolnirs or jewelry and stuff to help raise money and stuff, so we could help the community.
Yeah.
And we see it in a lot of ways, how we build those community bonds, and respect each other. But everybody's moral compass is different, and just like those tribes back then were so different, so are we. And I still don't understand why people are so obsessed with the nine noble virtues, because there's like over 50 virtues that are spoke of in the Eddas, the sagas,
Yeah.
the lore that breaks it all down. They're like, wait, there's more, and I'm like, yeah, boo. I'm like, there's way more than that. You gotta dig a little deeper. Like, I'm sorry, but there is way more than that. I hate to tell you. And they're like, really? Can I see your notes? And I'm like, sure. And it's actually interesting because I gave it to one of my friends so she could help with her prison outreach, and they're actually doing
Oh,
a
nice.
study group over it on the different, virtues and stuff, and they're connecting them with different quotes from sagas and the Havamal and different things like that.
Yeah.
And so she's going to share it back to me when she connects all the different ones, so I could read it and everything. So yeah,
Is it like a prison outreach program that is designed for pagans or
yes,
non-denominational?
it's the Appalachian Pagan Ministry up north in Ohio, I think it is.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's Donna Devion. She's a really nice lady and everything. And we talk from
Okay.
time to time, and she shares her wisdom of how paganism was, back in the 60s and 70s, and uh she was telling me some of the stuff that's in Norse pagan now that's made up, and I'm like, "Really?" I'm like, "Hmm." I'm like, "Do tell." I'm like, "Can I record this so I'll remember it for later?"
Right.
And it's so interesting how, what they even knew, almost 50 years ago and what they do now. And, to me, there's a lot of watered down stuff. There's a lot of pagan stuff and Norse pagan stuff that's watered down. And there's, some of the UPG stuff is useful from somebody else's experience, but I don't know. I'm more of a historical type of gal. Like, I want facts.